Welcome to Rich Conversations. This is another great episode because we have Juan Diana. That's how I pronounce it, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
And he's all the way in Montevideo, Uruguay. He's a software engineer. I thought, what a great person to talk to. So why don't you briefly introduce yourself?
All right. Thanks for having me, Rich. So, as you said, I'm a software engineer. I almost got a decade of professional experience in the field. I mainly do Android for a living. I live here in Montevideo, Uruguay's capital. We live in an apartment with my girlfriend on the neighborhood of Punta Carretas. We both studied in the public state university, which is called the University of the Republic. And I also study part-time as a hobby, music. I'm doing the music producer career at a local conservatory here, which is called Conservatorio Sur. And that's pretty much it. I think it sums up.
Sums up.
Yeah.
Why don't you describe do you have like a brief history of Uruguay?
A brief history?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just cut. A brief
Oh,
history
yeah.
of Uruguay.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're so far away. It's, might cut in,
Sure.
cut out.
So,
the history of Uruguay.
Yeah, we are actually like a mixture of European descendants, mostly from Italy and Spain, but also from other parts, of course. So it's interesting because Uruguay was colonized by the Spanish and the Portuguese at different times in history. And during that time, there was people got incentivized to come live here with nobility titles and so on. But eventually a nation formed that felt independent from the Spanish and the Portuguese. And well, they started fighting back. In the territory was under the Spanish and the Portuguese during some time. And eventually what happened was interesting. Basically, the English came and just say, okay, let's do this an independent country, and neither of you can have it. So the three of them made this agreement, and that's how we got our independence. So it's
Really?
not like yeah, it's not like the English guy like they were all just good intentions. There was a pretty good motivation for them to do that, and basically it's because there's a very natural and important port here in Montevideo, and which was the entrance for all the merchant for all the economy that the English were coming, and they were taking things from South America, and it was one of the main ports at the time in South America. So they didn't want to be paying to one of them to use that port. So the solution that they had, it was to have this be an independent country. So they didn't have to go through the Spanish or the Portuguese.
Interesting.
And well, Uruguay has always been a very progressive country. You might even have heard about.
I have heard that
in politics, like in the last century, but very early on, like in the start of the first century, it was one of the first countries in Latin America to separate the church from the state in 1919. Also, one of the first countries in the world to give women to the right to vote. It was the first one in Latin America. It was even before the US, if I recall correctly. It was in 1917. And more recently, you might have heard about all these progressive politics that were in place. Legalization of marijuana, legalization of the abortion, one laptop per child in high schools and in in elementary school. So
So how does a
Uruguay.
country like what what's the culture like in Uruguay that it spurs kind of this more like progressive type of policies?
What's the culture like in here in Uruguay? Well, I guess that there's a lot of historical reasons that we are the way we are. If you were to come here to Uruguay, you will notice that a lot of similarities between the way that people in Spain and Italy live. I have experienced that
Okay.
firsthand from a recent trip to Spain.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
and I would say that the rhythm of life here in Montevideo in particular, it's not slow, but it's slower than in many cities. Like we like to take a little bit more time to do things and not be rushed all the time, like you see people in Buenos Aires or in New York City. And we like, a fun fact is that we have like the longest carnival on earth, even longer than Brazil.
Really?
And yeah, it takes place in the month of February,
Okay.
in summer here. It's the longest one on earth.
Wow. Yeah, what are some of the differences between Uruguay and other surrounding South American countries?
Well,
Well, there aren't too many surrounding it, right?
yeah, we are surrounded by Argentina and Brazil.
Yeah.
So those are two big countries, really.
Very big. Yeah.
So obviously, with Argentina, we share the language, Spanish, and that's not the case with Brazil. But there are a lot of things that you can find that we have in common. In particular, if you visit Buenos Aires, you can see that there's a lot of culture and things that we share with them. Although, if you ask an Uruguayan, like, if you compare them to someone from Buenos Aires, they probably won't like it that much. So, but in the end, we share a lot of things, really, and they are probably the ones that are more like us in many ways.
Okay.
So what are the differences?
Yeah, or
Right.
what's something distinctive Uruguayan that others don't share?
Well, one of the common things that you can see day to day is people drinking mate here. Perhaps you have heard
Really?
of it. So it's basically like a hot infusion that you drink, and people carry mate under their thermo, which is the thing that you go with, like 1 liter of hot water. They carry it everywhere, so you can be on the bus and people just come off the bus with it, or they will be doing shopping at the shopping mall and they go with it. So it's something that may cut your attention. It's like, I know that people that came from other countries to visit Uruguay, they see, why is everyone carrying that around?
Yeah.
It's so heavy. So it's something that you won't see, for example, in Buenos Aires. They do drink mate as well, but they do it at their home. They don't carry it everywhere as we do here.
So what exactly is mata? You said it's a hot water. Is it like a tea or?
Yeah, I will say that you can say that it tastes like tea, but it's very bitter, and it's something that you probably need to drink to see how it tastes. But
Okay.
probably the closest one it would be like a tea, very bitter tea.
Okay. Huh.
And it has a lot of social connotations as well, because it's something that people just have a very nice preparation, or some people ritual, you may say, and they
Okay.
just share the mate with everyone that they are talking with. For example, if you go out with some friends to see the sunset, or to talk in the afternoon, they will share it, and just pass it around in the round. And it's something that accompanies many people in their morning. For example, it helps them to wake up, and like, just instead of drinking coffee, for example, many people substitute it with mate.
That's interesting. I did not know that at all.
Yeah, and what's very interesting is that I've seen a lot of people that are not from this region drinking mate in the US or Mexico, and many people hearing about it. And in Europe as well, I guess many people know about this because of the Uruguayan players that carry the mate around everywhere. So now in all major cities, you can actually uh, buy the what's called the yerba mate, or yerba mate, as we say here in Uruguay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So if you have an open day, how do you choose to spend it?
Well, with my girlfriend, we really enjoy taking long walks alongside the what we call the ramblas, which in some cities, I guess that they call them promenades. It's basically the sidewalk next to the beach. So we have like 30 kilometers or more of rambla, and it's it's a very Uruguayan thing, or Montevidean thing, I would say, to do. Go to the Rambla, walk, enjoy some time there, see the sunset. So that's something that I would recommend someone to do. Of course, go see the sunset at the Rambla, definitely. And then obviously it depends on the person, what they enjoy. Um, Wherever I go to a country, I try to enjoy the culinary art, and go to restaurants and see what they have to offer. And I think Montevideo has a lot to offer in restaurants. There are a lot of good restaurants that I would suggest them to go.
So yeah, so it's like right on the water. I'm looking at Google
Ah, sí.
Images right now of the city, and so you mentioned the sunset. So
Yeah.
Montevideo faces south, right? So is
Yeah,
this the
we are the
sunset?
southwest of the
It's going to
Uruguay.
be on the side of you instead of in front of you?
It's gonna be it's gonna be on the side, yeah, but it depends on where you are, right?
Obviously, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Huh.
So in the part of the Rambla that I'm telling you, which it would be the west side, you will see a perfect sunset there.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these photos. They're pretty
Mhm.
awesome. The architecture is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's right. Another thing that I would suggest someone coming to Montevideo to do is to walk through the avenue called 18 de Julio, and end up in the old town. And there's a lot of architecture there, and I've even realized that guiding some people that were not from here, and I will realize about all this architecture that I had not seen, really, because I was not paying attention, and because I've always lived here. There are some things that you don't see with that detail since you grew up here. And once you start showing people, you realize how precious they are, and that they are not so typical of other places.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I noticed that too. And it's like it's important to be aware of what's around you, because people are coming to visit and they're like so amazed by everything, and here you experience it every day and take it for granted, right? It's interesting. I want to switch over to Spain a little bit. Tell me more about your trip. This is like a
Okay.
hiking expedition in Spain, right?
Yeah, Camino de Santiago is actually very old, and it has, I would say, a lot of religious connotations to
Okay.
it. So basically, the peregrinos were the people that would just do all these different paths and end up in Santiago de Compostela, which is a city that they have this gigantic cathedral, all in gold and very precious, very nice. And we, as a group, like I have a group of friends that we've done Machu Picchu, we've done Torres del Paine and other places. And we mostly do it because we like doing these kind of expeditions, hiking, getting together and seeing beautiful places, discovering this type of things. So I will guess we did it mainly for, you could call it maybe spiritual reasons, as they ask you when you go to do it, they ask you, are you doing it for tourism, spiritual reasons,
Oh,
for
really?
religious reasons? So you need to fill a form there. And we really enjoyed it. We did, so before I start saying that, I like to let you know that there are actually many paths to Santiago.
I'm
There
looking
are,
I'm looking at a map right now of all the paths.
oh, I see. So we did the French path, which starts in France, but we only
Camino
did,
Francis,
yeah.
or
So
yeah.
that's basically the French path, Camino de Francés. And there are others. There's the original one. There's the Portuguese. There's the one in the north that goes through Bilbao and on the whole coast in Spain, which I was told was very nice. And there are many more even. And each person starts where they want, really. We started in a city called Astorga, which is in the way of the French path, and it's 260 kilometers away from Santiago. So we did that distance by foot in 11 days.
Okay, I'm trying to think.
And
I'm trying to calculate in my head.
we did
260 kilometers.
just, yes, just so you know, we did around from 20 to 30 kilometers per day.
Wow. So you're doing a lot of walking.
Yeah, we did a lot of walking.
So what did you do? So you walked to, it looks like you would walk to one of these, what are these cities? And then there's like things to do, I would imagine, or places to see. I'm looking at this map and then there's like all these dots and icons. Is that, how did you kind of organize your trip? Like per day you would walk to another place. Would you then like sightsee a little bit, or would you just go to sleep and then just get ready for the next day?
So let me tell you what happened. We had an idea on what we were gonna do.
Okay, of course.
And we had planned some of these things. And particularly a friend of mine was the one that organized most of it. And we did an Excel. He did even a presentation and everything. We had everything organized. And when we arrived the first day, and you mostly stay at local hostels and things called albergues, which are kind of a hostel. And due to COVID, they have 50% of occupation or even less in some places.
Okay.
And we stayed at a place which is owned by a lady from Brazil, that she did the Camino, and then she decided to stay there long ago. And we told them what we were gonna do, and she was like, no, 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 you need to do this and this. And we were like,
Oh.
we were gonna do a free walking city tour
Uh-huh.
for like at 10 a.m. or something like that, and then start walking. And she was like, no, you cannot do that. Like, you need to start walking early because of the sun and everything. And well, she was like a mother to the group of us in that
Wow.
she gave us a lot of tips. So I think we started in the right foot there, thanks to her help. And so every day we will wake up at 5:30 or 6, depending on the difficulty of what we had ahead, and we
Okay.
will arrive towards the midday or 2 p.m. max. So one of the things that may worry you the most when you do the path is the sun, especially at that time of the year, in the end of August.
Mhm.
It was the time that that we did it, and it's much harder to do it if it's hot, and you need to be climbing so,
Yeah.
something. It's a lot harder for us. I think it did very well. The weather, really, we had very beautiful days. Just one day which it rained, but it was actually nice because it was cool, and we didn't have like, it was very comfortable to walk like that. So it was just
So you walked in the rain.
yeah, but not that much rain, really. It rained
Okay.
for a bit, and then it was just cloudy, and it was great to walk that way.
So you're trying to avoid the sun as much as possible, right?
Yeah, uh, everyone does in the Camino.
Yeah. So what were your favorite parts of the trip?
The favorite part of the Camino to me is meeting people along the way. So we were a group of 7, all from Uruguay, but we will always end up splitting because, first of all, everyone has its own pace, and then because I think it's good to just have your stages, like do some stages alone and meet other people and just talk and get to know people that are doing it, why they are doing it, where they come from, what their experiences have been. And along the way, I met some wonderful people. We met somebody from Bilbao, which accompanies us most of the trip. He was going at mostly the same pace that we were going. I made a couple of friends from Barcelona who, like, they later joined the group. So, and and you also see other people that have other groups that are going more or less at your pace, and you see that many of them actually started solo. They started doing
Oh,
it,
really?
yeah, on their own, and then they started forming these groups, and they would stay at albergues and hostels together. So, like, I think a very important part of the journey of doing the Camino is actually meeting people. And uh, in all these things that you do, trekking and things, it's one of the things that you remember the most, the people that you have met.
So you're with a group of friends who you have
Mhm.
like a close relationship with, and then in addition, you're meeting other people that you might stay in touch with during that time.
Right, and some people you met them for a few hours, and you do a little bit together. Other people you may meet them for the whole journey. It depends.
Yeah.
So, but I remember I met someone from the US. He's from New York,
Okay.
and he's an educator. And well, we had a very good talk in a stage of the Camino. He actually started in France, so he was doing 700 plus kilometers. It was pretty insane.
Wow. Huh. So what happens when you arrive at the destination? What is that like?
Well, the interesting thing is that you go through several cities and very small towns. Some of
Mhm.
these towns are just live because of the Camino, because of the people that stay there. So
Yeah.
you may encounter some very small towns that are just 20 people living there, or people that actually don't live there but come to work there. And you may stay at any stage that you want. So some people may stay there and some others may stay in the next town. So maybe in that day you won't see them, but in the next day you may encounter them again as you pass them while you are doing the Camino.
It's awesome. So where does this trip rank in your experiences hiking and stuff?
Oh, it's I think that that's hard to do, especially because it's been so recent. But I think it's very valuable, and there are different aspects to it. Because if you were to say about like the sightseeing that we did, I would probably put Torres del Paine, which is the Chilean Patagonia, first, because it's the place that I've seen the most beautiful sightseeing, mountains, everything from icebergs to mountain. It has everything. But then from other aspects like meeting people. And eating in Spain, you eat very well. And it's incredible. Like you could rank it in the first place. Like one thing I don't know if you know about Spain is that they eat two plates. Like they have two servings in lunch, and that's something that I'm not used to. And well, since we're walking so much and burning so much calories, that was great to have. But it's not something that, at least here in Uruguay, we are used to doing.
Wow. So you have this trip. You said you did the Chilean Patagonia, and Machu Picchu. Have you done other hikes? And are there some that you want to do in the future?
Yeah, there's definitely many that I want to do. I've done some, I would say, day trips here in Uruguay, but nothing that compares to those, I would say. I want to go. There's there's this region which is all across Canada and the US, the Rocky Mountains. So there's a lot there
Which one is that
to do.
called?
The Rocky Mountains.
Oh, you just want to do Rocky Mountains. Do you ever hear about the Appalachian Trail?
The sorry, the what? Huh?
The Appalachian Trail, is that something you hear about?
I don't think so. Are you talking about the train that goes all through Canada? No.
No, it's there's like a something I hear like hikers talk about is like the Appalachian Trail, like on the east part of the United States, kind of like
Mm,
older mountains. Um,
I
but
haven't heard of it.
you haven't
It
heard of it.
sounds
Check it out.
interesting.
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
if
The
that's
Appalachian
something.
Trail.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Are there any other continents you want to hike on?
Sure, of course. I just started with Europe, so this was actually my first visit to Europe. I have all the
Oh,
urge
cool.
to visit still, and there's a lot in Asia, of course. And there's a lot still in the Americas
Yeah.
to discover.
What was Machu Picchu like?
Oh, it's an incredible journey. We did what's called the Salcantine Trail, and it's over 5 days. You end up sleeping in the middle of the mountains, and it's journey. So before I went to Machu Picchu, I had never seen a mountain before. So when we went there and I woke up on the bus as we were going, I woke up and it was like 6 a.m. or something like that. It was barely, so it was dark and it was barely getting some light. And I saw like this gigantic mountain, and it was very impactful. And then I kind of realized why they worship these mountains as gods, the people that live there. And it has it has very incredible sightseeing along the way. What I enjoyed the most in that trip is doing all the way. We went up to a mountain that was 5,700 meters tall. And I think Machu Picchu, it's it's impactful, the place itself, because of how where it's situated and everything. But for me, the journey and doing all this walking and going through the mountains and everything, it was much more special and enjoyable to me than just seeing the place.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking like merit. The place is great. Many people even just go directly and see the place itself without doing all this walking.
Uh-huh.
But
But you earned it. You went on the walk.
right,
Yeah.
it's another feeling also arriving after doing all that.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So you've been all those are some good spots. I definitely want to do
Mm,
Machu Picchu. Huh. Well, switching gears a little bit,
all right.
switching major gears here. What sparked your interest in software engineering?
All right. So that's I would say that was like very natural to me. Like since I was, well, let me explain. So since I was a kid, like I will always be disassembling toys, computers, switching hardware, and like just messing with things, and playing video games, of course. So when I decided to do university, and I was between electrical engineering and computer engineering, so it was like it felt very natural to me to take that direction. And then before finishing my degree, I actually started working, which is very common here in Uruguay, that most
Okay.
people start working much earlier than they graduate. So as I started working, and this was at a product company, I started seeing all the challenges that entail shipping a software product, and not only the technical aspects, but also the the soft skills and the people that the team that you need to be able to deliver that. So there are a lot of challenges, and it's very complex and very interesting. It's a whole field, software engineer. So I got I know that I started developing a passion for processes and in software in development, and it's something that I really enjoyed. And well, I knew that I wanted to pursue uh, that path.
That's awesome. So what like in the information age that we live in, what's the role of like software engineers and how do you see it evolving in the future?
Right. So
Big question.
that that's a very interesting question. And the thing that has changed the most over the last decades is that each decade more industries depend more heavily on software. So that's something that most people are realizing now. If they haven't over the last decade at least. But many industries that probably some decades ago were seeing software as something so far from them, actually I realized that it's very important and that it has impacted their industry. So there are many cases that have happened in the industry, like Uber, Airbnb, all these delivery platforms that they have disrupted their spaces.
Mhm.
And well, for example, in the taxi industry, they probably did not see that coming until it came.
Yeah. Or
And
hotel chains and things like
yeah,
that, I'm sure.
yeah, and the thing with software is that it can have a very profound impact in the software that they disrupt. So, and each time, like with the pandemic, it happened the same. Like for many employers and many industries that they were not so connected with software and tech in general, they had to do some steps in order to allow remote workers and so on. And many employers had to adapt their business to be able to survive even
Yeah.
during this pandemic. So like for software engineers, there are as many different roles as there are industries and capabilities that they can do. So there are many different challenges in software that you can do really.
Yeah. So are you busier now with COVID? Because everybody's having to adapt and go remotely and do things more online in their computers, or is
Right.
it pretty much
You ask if
same?
I'm busy.
Yeah, busier. Yeah. You there?
Sorry,
Yeah,
it cut.
froze a little bit.
So you were asking if I've been busy, right?
Yeah, are you busier now with COVID
I
because people
never
have
been
had to
busier.
adapt? Yeah.
Yeah, so uh, since COVID started, like I've been working a lot, really, and this started with COVID itself because at the company I was working I was working at, we actually developed the mobile application for the country for
Oh,
Uruguay. We were actually one of the first countries to have the mobile app available and integrating with Google's and Apple's API. So I actually stay at the company specifically to develop the first versions of this app, and it's been very successful. So that first month, we had the whole team working 24/7.
wow.
So it was very tough, and we launched the first version in just a week.
So
So
what app is this you said?
it's a coronavirus app for UI.
Oh, okay.
And so here in Uruguay, we had our first cases on March 13th of last year, and
Yeah,
on
so
March
that's
20th,
yeah.
we launched the app. So you can
Wow.
imagine the pressure that we had.
Yeah, congrats to
But
you for getting that done so quickly.
yeah, it was very successful. Even the company got letters from Tim Cook and Sundar Pichai themselves. So I think the company got a lot of recognition for that work.
Wow. So you're really interested in technology and you interact with it. You said you play video games and you like
Yeah, I
you're on
used to
computers a
play
lot, quite
video
a bit.
games.
Uh,
I wish I could, but like I noticed that like 5 years ago I just stopped it.
you stopped
And
playing video games 5 years ago?
right, yeah, I
Yeah.
played my whole life, but like 5 years ago, like I guess things change in your life, and like
Yeah.
you have other things now.
Yeah, I haven't played video games in like 10, 12 years maybe. But you're around technology a lot. Do you see what kind of trends do you see happening within society just being kind of in the tech industry?
Right. I think it's mostly what I was talking about earlier. There are industries that didn't have much contact with software that were disrupted by these tech platforms that were created, like
Mhm.
Uber, Airbnb. And what they do is like they have a strong relationship with the consumers, and they offer a high value to the providers. And in many cases, that value is so strong, and they are so in contact with the consumers that providers have no other choice but to go with them. And I've seen that happen in many industries now. So I think that that's a trend that's actually been talked quite a lot. They call it also the incumbent, and there's a lot of readings about it and how powerful that can be. And many people are trying to, in the tech industry, are trying to do the same with other industries. Um, so that's I would say that's a very strong trend that has happened over this last decade.
Huh. So it's like if I'm trying to comprehend this, so it's almost like taking many industries that weren't tech savvy and now making them all kind of uh tech involved with tech in a way.
Well, I don't. The thing with tech is not like just putting software just because of it, for the sake of it,
Okay.
but because software enables you to do things that you cannot do with other forms. And it allows you to automate things in a way that you cannot do with other methods. And that's why these companies are able to create such a strong value.
So it's about value, using these new ways or new methods to add more value for customers and
Yeah,
users. Got it.
yeah. And these companies, like, they act as an intermediary between the consumers and the providers. And so from their side, they have these two kind of very different users. And what they care to do the most is be really close to the consumers, which is basically the market. So they have the market, so they are able to then negotiate with the providers, and basically the price as far up as they can once they have the market.
Huh. Interesting. So what music do you listen to?
It varies a lot. So as you know, I'm very into music, and I would say that I have stages that for example, I'm discovering an artist, and I will listen to his or her albums. And I tend to listen to indie music and many local music here in Montevideo and Uruguay, rather than the typical commercial music. And there's a lot of good artists here in Uruguay, and that's something that I try to discover. Back when there was no COVID, I used to go often to see some indie artists presenting their work. And it varies a lot. I like indie rock. Like, there's a lot of genres really, and I wouldn't pick one really.
What are
There
some
are
names of Uruguayan artists for me to write down?
for each. Okay, so there are some very known ones, like you could say Jorge Drexler is one of them. He's actually living in Madrid at the moment, but he's famous, especially worldwide, because he won an Oscar for one movie. So he's the first Uruguayan to won an Oscar, and he's very talented composer as well.
Okay.
And his music is very good, really. And then there are many like popular rock bands. You could say No Te Va a Gustar or La Triple Nelson. That they are known across the Americas.
Repeat those again.
And No Te Va a Gustar, which means you are not gonna like it in Spanish. And another one that's very good is Cuarteto de Nos.
What does that mean in Spanish?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It's a cuarteto is four people from a band.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's de nos, really.
Yeah. So is there like a close relationship between Uruguay and Spain still?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Many of us are descendants. Like my grandparent, he's from Spain, and he's actually from Galicia, which is the part that I visited, and that's where Santiago de Compostela is. So for me, this trip that I did recently, it was also special because I got in contact where my grandparent came from, and many people are descendants from Spain, and there's a strong culture here in Uruguay from Spain. In there are many things that you can see that are strongly related, from names of things that come also from Spain, to just habits, like having dinner later in the day than most countries. For example, we have dinner around 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So as
Okay.
an American, you will be surprised about that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And like people in Spain just have dinner later in the day, and in Italy, I think it's also fairly common to do that as well. So you can see how the way we are comes very much influenced by how our ancestors, the culture that they
Yeah.
had.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It makes a lot of sense too. What's one of the last questions I have for you is, what's something you're curious about recently?
All right. I'm always curious about some things that I have my mind on. So recently it was more about my grandparent, as I was talking about, and I actually spent some time talking with my mother about it and all the things that she knew about him, because she actually met him and she was able to talk with him. How many of the recipes in the family, like the tortilla, like came from Spain, and so that's very interesting. And then, like in the music side, I'm getting to know an artist which is very influential here, which was, well, because he's not alive anymore, but he's still very much alive in the sense of all the music that he created, which is called Eduardo Mateo. And that's a huge name here in Uruguay.
What's the name again?
It's Eduardo Mateo.
Okay. Cool.
So he composed a lot of very different music, and I'm getting to know many of it.
Very cool. Well, the last question I have for you is what's your impression of Americans?
My personal impression.
Yeah.
Well, I did a trip in 2019. I went through United States and Canada. Like I was traveling through the US for 1 month,
Okay.
and I went from San Francisco, Seattle, Cleveland, Chicago, Nashville, Columbus,
Yeah,
Ohio.
you done some traveling here in the
Yeah, I did
States.
I went through all these cities doing couch surfing mostly, so I got to know local people from there, and it was a great trip really, and I got to know a lot of the US. And one of the things that many people don't realize is how different it can be in the
Yeah.
US. It's a huge country really, and there are very different cultural things depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that we actually consume a lot of content from the US. And so a lot of it comes through Hollywood. A lot of it comes through YouTube. Like children these days, they know a lot of things because they watch YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
We use Netflix a lot, so we have a strong influences from the US media and culture, but like the media that comes through these services is mostly like one-sided, like, and you don't realize how different it can be in the US if you just watch this content.
Yeah.
So I think people here like don't really have that much strong opinions about the US in general, but they are pretty much aware of it. And
Yeah.
I've seen people go crazy when some big brand from the US comes, like Starbucks, Forever 21,
Oh,
H&M.
yeah.
Like people will go crazy and line up like there was no tomorrow.
Wow. Interesting.
In the first days.
Yeah. What did you think of Chicago when you came here?
Oh, it's incredible, the architecture. And it's very cool that like you can go and drink a wine by the river and people with yachts. And that's something I've never seen like in other places, like in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Be like that. I enjoy my time in Chicago. I feel like I should spend more time because I think I was like 3 to 4 days, and it's very big, Chicago as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Juan. This has been great talking with you. I appreciate it.
I say the same.
Yeah.
It's
Thanks
great
again.
that your assistant found me.
Yeah. I was telling him how I discovered him. Isn't it? See, this is kind of my perspective is like, we have these digital tools available. Why not use them to explore what you want to explore? And if you want to talk to people, find people that you can learn from and you're curious about, instead of not doing it, Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.